the next two songs we're going to sing were some of the songs that we sang as part of the children's services that we did. I probably should have Sister Pam Brock come and lead these songs because that was what she did. She was the song leader, but I'll let her pass. All right. Let's see. Yeah, you guys
gozo en mi corazón, donde en mi corazón, donde en mi corazón yo tengo gozo, 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 gozo en mi corazón, sí, porque Cristo me salvó. Yo tengo paz, 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 paz en mi corazón, donde en mi corazón, donde en mi corazón yo tengo paz, 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 paz en mi corazón, sí, porque Cristo me salvó.
All right, and that's I got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart, and I got the peace down in my heart. Okay, we have one more we're going to do. Yeah, you'll recognize it. Do in the children's services, of course, just like we do here in the United States, we had a competition between the boys and the girls. And so we're going to do that tonight. We're going to have the congregation decide who sings the loudest, all right? We're going to have the guys take the Alleluias and the girls take the Gloria a Dios, and then we'll switch it. And then after the conclusion of switching it, we'll have you vote as the congregation who did the best, all right? The ladies did the best. All right, how many think the guys did the best? Okay, guys win. All right, it was obvious. Okay, they all didn't sing near as loud as they could, especially Mr. Ethan Hummel. We could go into details. He would get very embarrassed, and so we won't. But let's just say that Ethan could have a future in the opera. Okay, all right, you guys can go ahead and sit down. And the trip was a great trip. It honestly was one of the best missions trips that we've had. And you know that it's a good trip when you get down to the end and the missionaries are saying, it went so fast, don't you think you could stay a few more days? And so it was a privilege. It really was to be with Eric and Hannah. There was some just phenomenal things that took place on the trip. And the young people are going to be sharing a lot of details about the trip, and then we'll see if they leave out anything, and I'll have anything left to say at the end of the service. But just to give you a few just brief statistics in regards to the trip, we traveled over 2,250 miles. We held 11 services. In 8 days' time, we were in 2 different countries. Crossing the border from Honduras to Nicaragua is a process that I wouldn't wish on anybody. It's absolutely ridiculous, the hassle you have to go through. They defumigate your vehicles and everything, but that's crazy. We ministered to over 500 people in the services that we held, and there were over 75 people that sought God at the altar, and many of them got saved. Many of them were, of course, children that got saved for the very first time, and it was definitely worth your investment in sending these young people to Honduras and Nicaragua, and we say a big thank you. Many of you that are here tonight, you prayed for the trip, or you gave financially, and we just say thank you so much. It wouldn't have been possible without your prayers, and we thank you so much. They're going to be coming, the young people are going to be coming and sharing a little bit about the trip. I have no clue what they're going to say. This is not scripted, and so please forgive us if we say something that is inappropriate, but we've tried to screen as much as possible, and you just never know with this group. I'm just going to need to throw that out there. There are things that took place on the trip that they should not share in this service. However, their parents could probably hear about it, but who knows what will be said. But it was a great trip, and we give God all the glory and praise. All right, Jeffrey Anderson, he's our leadoff guy, and he's coming to share.
Well, this is what you get when your last name starts with A, but oh well. I guess I'm supposed to give some highlights of the trip. One that I really enjoyed was we went to a little school and held a service for the children there. As far as I know, they've never had a service at that school, so it was pretty neat to go and spread the gospel to those children. After we're done with the service, they let us play soccer with them. Now, if you know anything about these southern, countries, Central American countries, they love soccer. Their kids are really good at it. And if you've ever seen me play soccer, it's pitiful. It's just pitiful. But it was fun to get to play with them. I could mention another one, getting a hug from a pretty girl, but I don't think I'll go into details there. Let me see. I got to do some painting there at the churches. I got to paint a logo for one of the churches out front there. They needed the logo done, so I drew in the design and they painted over it afterwards. But that was pretty neat. Then we did some painting over at Las Delicias. Well, it wasn't painting, it was primer, but we got it ready to be painted. Then I helped with skits. That was pretty fun for me. I like acting. I mean, not the greatest at it, but it's fun. Let me see. A funny moment here. Oh, yeah. Nicaragua. I can pick on Brandon Walter because he's not here. Every year we go on one of these trips, he sleepwalks. Every night. Every night of the trip, he sleepwalks. And see here, we were in our room. This was just after a huge rainstorm just came in. So I was laying there in bed. I couldn't sleep. And Brandon started moving around in his bed. And that's always a bad thing. You just never know what's going to happen with this kid because he sleepwalks every night. So he got out of his bed. He moved around. He went to the door. He sat down there on his pillow right next to the door. He's a good watchdog, Then he got back up. I don't know how much time passed before that happened, but he got back up. He started feeling around. He grabbed my foot a few times while I'm trying to sleep there in bed. Oh, I tell you. Then he goes over, turns the light on. And I had just about enough of this. He turned it back off. As soon as the light came on, I said, "Brandon, you're sleepwalking." He's like, I am. I was like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I thought I was in the security line at the zoo." I still think he was sleeping. He says he was awake at that moment. I don't believe one word of it. Well, I just want to thank the church for allowing us to go on this trip, and thank all of you that specifically gave for us to go on this trip. We had a really good trip. We really learned a lot of things, and hopefully none of this has been in vain, and hope to go back someday.
And this is what I get for my last name starting with A. Some of the highlights of the trip for me were in getting to connect with the people, especially the children and teens. And like I said in the pre-service, actually getting to pray with somebody for the first time in Spanish, as broken as it was, but God helped. And also ministering in Santa Rosa, which was the small village in Nicaragua, at that school. And it was really neat because it seemed like the kids didn't really know much of Jesus, and they were absorbing all that we were saying and learning the songs for the first time, and it was really neat to experience that. And then going to Las Delicias was really neat too, because I was never at that church before, and I love being in smaller villages and connecting with the kids. During the trip, I attempted some translating here and there, hopefully more successfully than not. I taught the Bible verses during the VBS. I helped some with the singing in Spanish, helped a little bit with puppets, and tried to just focus on loving the people and connecting with them as much as I could. As far as how the trip impacted me, one thing that really stood out to me was as we were going to Las Delicias, we passed by a Catholic shrine, and it's really interesting to me to see that because, I didn't expect that going to Honduras. I mean, I know there's a lot of Catholicism in the Hispanic world, but, just seeing how much people get into that and worshiping all the different patron saints and all of that, even in a country that's reached. And then, as also with Nicaragua, that small village, and getting to talk to those people and share the gospel with them for what seemed like one of the first times. And then the dump, I kind of talked about that in the pre-service as well, but it was really interesting to see and really eye-opening to see the immense need of so many people there. As far as funny stories, I ended up sleeping through most of them because I fall asleep really, really early and cannot stay up late. But there was one point where the team decided it would be fun to take donuts over to one of the guards near the church in Tilo Arque. And so we took donuts over to him, and they decided to sing a Christmas carol to him at the same time in the middle of June. Well, in the end of June. But it was very interesting. And, well, there was Ethan singing his opera. And one he was famous for was, "Oh, Where's My Hairbrush?" And then another thing, every time we traveled, the guys decided it would be fun to sing 99 Bottles of Pop on the Wall. So they drove us insane with that. And in the end, I want to thank you so much for all that you did to help me to be able to go. And yeah.
Well, this was my first time to Honduras and Nicaragua, so it was pretty cool to go there. And some of my highlights were being able to see Eric and Hannah, because we don't get to see them much, and they're very good missionaries. And also going to the countries of Honduras and Nicaragua. They are very different than the United States. Some things I did like, I helped in the children's services with like the puppets and in some skits, and I'd pass out prizes. Like I also primed at Los Delicias, I think it was, and things like this can impact your life, and like seeing like how the poor like live every day, like, and like after they hear the gospel, some people just like accept it because maybe they never heard it before. And I want to thank everybody who supported me, and thanks.
Hola. That means hello in Spanish. I picked up on a few things. That was one of them. And I'm terrified of speaking in public, so I'm not even going to look at you all. I'm just going to look right here. Okay, well, I wrote everything down because I knew I would forget it. Honduras was a really cool and good experience. It got pretty aggressive at times, but for the most part, it was okay. I helped out with the Daniel and the Lion's Den skit and some of the painting. And in the house where we were staying, the boys slept downstairs and the girls were upstairs. And I had the unpleasant privilege of sleeping by the stairs. And on the first night, the girls were panicking because apparently there was a couple drunk guys outside their window talking to them and such and so on. And I guess guys down there don't see, how did you say it? White women and such. And so, yes, they were taking an interest in them. Okay, but the girls were like terrified. They were terrified. And since I was hearing all this, I couldn't get to sleep. I was terrified as well. And so Pam came down. She's like rushing down the stairs. And she's like, Ethan, wake up, Matt. There's like guys outside the window. And like Matt's like, I nominate Ethan to go check the gate and make sure it's locked. And so he made me go out there and check the gate, and it was scary, okay? It was dark outside. It was like 10 feet away. That's like way too far, okay? At night. That's like creepy out there, okay? And yes, I don't know what I did when I eventually got to the gate. It was like a few minutes before I actually made it there. And when I actually got there, I don't know what I did, but it made a really loud clicking noise. And apparently, John Plank, who was sleeping by the door, he started panicking as well. And yes, but Matt didn't even care. Matt did not care at all. He just went to sleep. And okay, let me talk about something more serious. Oh yes, I would like to thank all of you who gave me the money so that I had the opportunity to go on this trip. And I would like to thank the Lord for keeping us safe on this trip because it gets pretty intense down there. And something that impacted my life while I was down there was seeing all the little children from our children's services getting saved. And hold on, I can't read my handwriting. Okay, so praise God, we are still alive.
This was my second time in Honduras, and I enjoyed it. I helped with the Bible verse for children's service, and it was neat to see children there getting saved. We got to see the water tower and the well that our church did for Las Delicias. want to thank my family for supporting me to go again, and thank you for praying for us.
Okay. I had a really good time on my first missions trip. I loved doing the skits, and they were really fun and interesting. Really interesting. If you were at the youth service earlier, you saw Daniel. We also did the Good Samaritan, and I was one of the bad people. One of the bad people with the sprinkles. We had on our little evil mustaches. Little evil. We were really evil. I had a lot of fun helping Eric and Hannah. They were really kind and did a lot for us. I liked handing out the blessing bags, and they had stuff like food, washcloths, hairbrushes, and just stuff like that. I also liked the interesting times when we were traveling. It was very different there. Apparently here, I heard someone talking in here. The people that were in the van, because we had to take 2 different cars, the people that were in the van said someone hitched the ride on the back of their car. So some people were a little bit freaked out over that. I also helped with the children's services. I helped hold up pictures for the Bible when they were telling the Bible stories, and I helped do the puppets for the song, and just other stuff for it. The trip was really different sometimes, too. A funny thing that happened was, well, the guys like to prank the sprinkles a lot. And so the guys went upstairs, took their shoes, and outside there's a wall surrounding the house. I think it might be like over 6 feet, maybe, I'm not sure how high it is, but only the tall guys can get there, and all of them are tall, almost all of them. And so they took their shoes, got on top of the wall, and sat them up there. So the girls don't have any shoes, they're like out there, and here they're demanding that they get their shoes down. So finally, they throw down their shoes, and Pepsi spills. It was very tragic. But we did have a lot of fun, and all the kids were really sweet, and they're just thankful for every single thing they have. They don't have as much as us and everything, and they're still happy. And when a lot of us have so much and we don't really care, like, all the people impacted me a lot, and just everything that Eric and Hannah do. And I just want to thank everybody for donating money, just helping me go on this missions trip. And yeah.
Well, I do have to say that there was a reason we took the shoes. Andrea had Colton's iPod and wouldn't give it back. So that's a vital point that was left out. But no, I really enjoyed that. I love traveling, so I really enjoyed seeing the 2 different countries, Honduras and Nicaragua. And I love seeing Eric and Hannah's ministry down there and all the stuff that they do, like the ministry they have there. One thing that was funny was Ethan, well, he's like, we were talking about something about the Ooga Booga Club, and Ethan comes over, he's like, I've never been initiated into the Ooga Booga Club, so we decided to initiate him. And we did all kinds of stuff with that, so that was pretty fun. But one thing that really impacted me was, well, we all gave a testimony Sunday, and one thing that impacted me was how easily just our testimonies through, like, one thing that was said, I think, quite a bit was how we were saved at a young age. And, like, the pastor of the one church said that how that really touched him, that he knows that, that God, like, can really touch people even when they're young. So I really liked that, and I loved seeing how the little kids, how they responded to when they went to ask to be prayed for, like, to be saved. And I want to thank the church for everything that you guys gave and all the prayers that you supported us with. I really would love to go back there someday. Thank you.
Well, I want to start out by thanking the Lord for the awesome privilege I had of going for the first time to Honduras, Nicaragua. And I guess I'll start with the funny part. It was Amanda, Zeb, Colton, and myself. We lost our carry-ons on the second day we were there. They arrived at the airport, so we went back. And as we're standing there waiting, there's a down escalator that was not being used. And so Zeb, Colton, and Amanda decided to walk up the down escalator while there was a guard standing there. So they're walking up, and then these people come down, they walk down. But they didn't get in trouble. That would have been funny. But I want to thank the Lord for keeping us safe as we were traveling. And I want to thank the ladies that cooked our food. It was very good food over there. And I want to thank everybody who made it able for me to go.
Well, Ruben left the part out of the story that kind of got wet because we got water bottles and squirted them. Well, I want to thank all of you who helped financially and prayed for this trip. It was a big impact on my life seeing all the kids and adults draw closer to God and get saved. Some things we did was VBS services, and we painted Los Delicias in Los Delicias. One of the highlights of my trips were getting to know the people there and listening to their testimonies, saying we were an impact on their lives. And Ethan, we were just hanging out in free time, and Ethan decided to come and join us. So he wanted to sing his opera. So he started singing, "Where's My Hairbrush?" So me, Laura, and Sammy get hairbrushes and start acting out to the song. Well, at the end, me and Sammy kind of wipe out. So we were sore a little bit at the end. But it was really fun, and I can't wait to go back.
One minute. Okay, I had a really good time on the trip. It was a privilege to be able to work with Eric and Hannah. They truly are some of the best missionaries you could ever work with. Something that really impacted me was seeing all the kids and families that we helped grow closer to God. One of the projects that we did was we painted some rooms for the church, and we also did some children's services. One of the things that I thought was funny was when we were getting our souvenirs on the last day, we were going to all these stores, and we went to this one that was 25% off, so we got a lot of our stuff there. So when we went to another store, Laura looks at me and Amanda, and she says, "That looks exactly like the guy we just bought a whole bunch of our stuff from." And apparently the guy heard us, and he turned around, he's like, "It is me!" And yeah, this is my friend's shop. His shop is also 25% off. So we thought that was interesting. So anyways, I want to thank everyone who helped us financially and everyone who prayed for us to have a safe trip. The trip was a real impact on my life, and I hope to go back soon.
Well, it's kind of upsetting being short, but Ruben did leave some things out. We did mess with Ruben a lot, but he also messed with us. Almost every morning we woke up and we'd leave the house and come back, and our air mattresses would be flattened on the ground. Ruben did a lot of stuff, and he was really a nuisance on the trip. He also told me he doesn't get embarrassed, so I thought I'd say some things about him. Highlight on the trip for me was definitely seeing all the people there who are so poor and living in the dump. It's really disgusting for me, but it's so sad how they have to live like that. The orphanage was also really sad for me, seeing just little kids being abandoned there. When I was in Honduras, I didn't really get to paint much because, well, the guys kind of handled that, but I was able to do a lot of puppets, so that was fun for me.
Another thing we did when we were down there is the night that Ethan talked about, the first night when there were some men outside our window, the girls were very afraid. And we weren't really sure what to do, and we were ready to do our devotion, so we're like, you know what? Let's do our devotions on fear. So we're there reading our devotions on fear, and after we were done, we're like, we could have a whole service here just on fear, because there's so much stuff about fear in the Bible. And about that time, Ashley gets blessed and starts standing up and yelling hallelujah and running around the room. And it just so happens that Kristen, who is a very heavy sleeper, is sleeping in the next room beside us, and Ashley's running around and she doesn't even wake up. The things she can sleep through are really amazing. Another interesting thing that happened was, well, where should I begin? We had a lot of interesting things. Reuben was involved in most of them. I was really thankful for everyone who supported us. We did a lot of fundraisers this year, and I'm sure we got extremely annoying always asking for donations, but thank you guys for all you've done to support us and help. There's no way we could have afforded this trip without your help and God's help, and we're really thankful for that. Thank you.
Well, I want to start out by saying thank you to everyone who supported us for this trip and all your prayers. And a highlight was seeing the children just responding to even some of the kids asking if the pastor could pray with them to get saved. And different things we did were painting, and we did a lot of children's services. Also, something kind of funny or cute or whatever was when we were at Eric and Hannah's church. We did the Daniel skit and the lion's den, and the church was getting really full, and the stage wasn't big enough for all the lions and everyone to get up there, so we had to go down in with all the kids. And when we were sitting down there, the kids would grab our tails and rub with their faces with them. And thought that was kind of funny. And the trip made a huge impact on my life. I never would imagine seeing all the kids at the orphanage with no homes, and some of them they found out on the street and at the dump, and all the kids digging, all the people digging through the trash. It was sad. And Eric and Hannah are very great missionaries, and they are doing a very good job down there. And I had a lot of fun on this trip, and hopefully I can go on another missions trip next year.
You guys are scaring me half to death. I guess it's great having your first and last name start with S, so you're last. One of the highlights of this trip was doing the children's services in the various churches. It was extremely exciting to see all these young children and young people singing and listening to the stories, and petting us too. That was a little weird. I was involved with doing a lot of the children's services by doing puppets, acting as a lion in a skit, or a bandit, tackling Clayton. Whatever they wanted me to do. We did painting. Me and Clayton did painting the church sign. We primed a room in Las Delicias. This trip made me extremely thankful for everything I have. Seeing those thousands of people living off the trash in the dump, that really impacted me. My trip did not start out so well. We barely got to Harrisburg. We went through security, and my hairpins set off the metal detector, which resulted in a lovely full-body pat-down. The entire airport knew I was getting this pat-down because Matt and the whole entire team is going, "Go, Sammy! Take it like a troop!" So everyone knew I was getting this pat-down. On our free day, we were walking through the market, and all of a sudden, I felt this really awful thunk against my back, and I turned around, there's a car against me, so I can also say I got hit by a car. And the border was also interesting, as Matt said. We all had to get our temperatures taken under our arms, and they did not clean them between, so it was very awkward and weird. I want to thank you all for supporting us on this trip, for helping us with the fundraisers. We were obviously very annoying. and with all of your prayers.
We had a great group of kids to go with us this time. We had a lot of fun. Alicia and I were in charge of having the children's services, getting them prepared before we went, and so we'd have like an idea of what to do once we got down there. So our services went kind of like this. The pastor would open up, the pastor of the church would open up the children's service for us, and then Eric would be the one that would come next, and he was our translator most of the time. And so he would lead us and talk to the kids a little bit, and then we would sing some songs, which we had made up some songs in Spanish before we went and made them kind of on a flip kind of a deal of a song. We left them with Eric so that he could use them for his ministry out over there. So then we would do songs, and as we did the songs, we had like a background that was like a two-piece background, and we cut like almost like a smile in them, and we had taken along probably 10 to 15 puppets. So the kids, when they talked about the puppets, that's kind of what they would do. They would stick these, as soon as the songs would start singing, they would have these puppets, because we all couldn't, it would have been very difficult for Eric to try to translate 15, 20 of us of what to say, so we kind of had like a main person, and the kids did some acting. So the children of Honduras and Nicaragua really enjoyed the puppets. They would watch that, and of course that put smiles on their faces and stuff, but they could really sing too. Then Alicia, she would do the Bible story, and John had helped her to make like pictures of like the first service would be like on the creation, how God created you. You're somebody special for God. And then the second service, if we only had one service, she would combine it to make it go together. But the second service then would be on how Jesus died for you, and you're still somebody very important, but there's a purpose for your life, and that you should serve Jesus and make it to heaven. So then we would do the scripture, which Vanessa and Kristen would do the scripture. They had put like the Spanish words on a piece of felt. We took a flannel board along, and Vanessa would hold it, and of course Kristen, she was a great help. She knew some Spanish, so she was able to actually just even do the scripture, and Eric would help us along and stuff too like that. And of course you've seen the skit. That was our next thing they would do. And then we would do 2 more songs, and then Eric would finish up, and he would tell, like give an invitation, and he would, give that they could come forwards and pray and stuff. And many times we saw children and people just gather to the front, and it was very exciting, and touched my heart even how that their heart is open to when they hear the gospel of God. Our first service was at the orphanage, which the children have talked about. That was kind of a little bit touching, sad. There was maybe, I would guess, 20 kids there or something. I mean, babies they had found on the street. But there was a lot of children. I think at the age of 17 they have to move on, but we had up to that. And then they would sit at almost like school desk, and we did our service, and they would, participate and sing along or whatever. Then that evening, this was the second night we were there, then we went to Eric's church, and then there was another church, which I don't remember the name of it, what was it? Las Uvas. It joined in with Eric because we didn't have time to do a service at his church and then go to this, and so he felt like if they bust him in, we could do that. Well, that just boosted all of us, even Eric too. I counted 60 kids. I'm thinking I even missed some kids. They were all over the floor. We had moved the chairs back and stuff, and his chapel, I wouldn't even guess, is maybe half of the platform. And they were crammed in there. The adults had some chairs, and so Hannah realized that we were getting crowded, and so she said to Eric, tell them, come over, the ladies and the ladies to come into my house, and that way there's more children can come in. He couldn't get the adults to move. They were so involved in wanting to see what was happening, and they were so wanting to hear what we had to say. So I thought that was kind of cool too. But probably about 40 children or more had come forwards to ask Jesus into their heart. So that was really touching. And of course, Eric was very excited to realize that he had never had that many people in his church before. So he was really excited. The next day we went to Nicaragua. We were running late. When we got to their church service, there was people already in the pews. We had to sit up and all that kind of stuff, but the children were already waiting for us. They didn't care. They'd come, I think, even up to an hour before that, just waiting, so excited to have something happen like that. Then we stayed overnight there at a hotel, and then the next morning we went to a local public school, which you've heard some of the children talking, and I think just like they're thinking, I don't think they've ever heard about Jesus before. They didn't really know what to do. They sat him in the yard there, and we did our, similar to what I told you our plan kind of was, and it was amazing to just let them hear, the gospel for the first time, and the Bible says it won't go void. So, God's definitely going to use what the children have done. Then that night, we went back and had another service at this church in Nicaragua that Eric's affiliated with. And that night, there was lots more children, because of course they tell, other children. And then that was pretty full house there. And that night, many children came to God there. Then we went on to Las Delicias, and then we had an evening service there, and that was packed out. And of course, we have adults involved, that they would come and listen to. And the next day, we had it in the morning, so then we didn't have quite as many people because of them working and that kind of thing. But there again, children wanted to accept Jesus. So then when we came back to Eric and Hannah's place Sunday, well, the way Eric and Hannah kind of do it is they have while Eric will preach, which Matt did the preaching at this one, then Hannah has the children come over into her living room, and she teaches the children a Sunday school lesson kind of thing, and I had the privilege to work with her to do that. So it's kind of interesting when you have to be interpreted. You got to know when to stop and not give him too many words to say, and then watch for him, because it seems like they have more words to say than English says. But then you knew, when he'd pause, you knew it was time to say something else. So it was quite interesting, and we probably had, I think, maybe 6 kids with that, and then Reuben and I think it was Clayton, is that who helped? Yeah, they helped with leading the singing, and then Vanessa, she helped too, and I think Kristen, didn't you help too with the scripture or something? So we kind of had a little mini one for her Sunday school deal. But all in all, it was a wonderful trip. And just to see God touch lives and even work through our kids is just amazing for me to go along and just watch our kids be used of God. So I say thank you for your prayers and your support and for the privilege of going.
I have a message from Alicia. She's not able to be here this evening, but she sent a message that I'll read. First of all, thank you so much for your prayers and support. When helping plan the VBS and children's services, we wanted to make every moment count by teaching the children about God, our Creator, the beginning of all things, and how sin came into the world. And then we went on to share the awesome plan of salvation and how, although our world and lives are broken, there is hope, love, and peace through Jesus. What touched my heart was their attentiveness and eagerness to learn, and many of them prayed to be saved. The thought and prayer that kept coming to my mind was, Jesus, help us be your hands, feet, and heart to these precious people. Every story, skit, song, Bible verse, prize, blessing bag, snack, smile, hug, and handshake was all part of sharing Jesus. I'm proud of the group of young people who went on this trip. They are awesome, loved Jesus, had a great team spirit, wonderful attitudes, and were lots of fun. Grateful for the opportunity to go along as a sponsor. I feel like I've left a part of my heart in Honduras. And I too would echo those same sentiments. And I thank everyone who supported this trip, made it possible. It was my 3rd time to be in Honduras. But it was my first time to go in this role as a sponsor, and frankly I was a little nervous about it. I thought maybe I was a little too old to handle all of this excitement, but somehow I survived and it went great. The group was wonderful, really a good group of kids, and they were very respectful. I never felt like they were being disrespectful or anything like that. Anytime we asked them to do something, no problem. They just went and did it. They were almost looking for things to do. They were excellent. And so it was great to see them working as a team. And one thing I do want to mention, and I've mentioned this before after I've been down there, is that every dollar you spend supporting the ministry of Eric and Hannah that they have down there, it's money well spent. It's worth every dime. They don't complain. They don't talk about the hardships that they have down there, but it's not an easy place to be. It's very dangerous. Several days we were there was no water. They don't have air conditioning. Just a lot of things that we're not used to having to deal with. But they don't focus on those things. They focus on the ministry. This is where they live, and they just do what everybody does, live the way they live, deal with the things everybody deals with. And we really appreciate what Eric and Hannah did. This was a lot of work for them because of the language barrier and so forth. They had to do a lot of translating, and I know it was a lot of extra work for them, but they didn't complain. They were happy we were there, made us feel welcome, and I really appreciated that. I brought a few pictures and so forth that I'm going to show here. This was in Tilararqui. This is the church right in Tegucigalpa that Pam was talking about, where they brought so many people in and the adults didn't want to leave. You can see the adults are all sitting in the back, kind of huddled back there, and the kids are just on the floor. I think we had at least 100 people in that little church that seats like 50 or 60 comfortably. And then there's probably a good, 50 or 60 more people in Eric and Hannah's house and out front that just couldn't get in. And so it's a little crazy. And so I'm going to play a little bit of the kids singing one of the songs that we did. So they weren't quite as shy about singing out as maybe we were. So, and then at the end of the service, one thing I forgot to mention, when you walked in that room, it was just stifling hot. It must have been in the 90s in there. It was so hot you could hardly stand it. And as you can see, some of the kids are dressed for winter with their knit hats and their winter coats. So I guess they thought it was a cold evening or something. But at the end of the service, we gave the invitation. Brother Eric asked anybody that wanted to pray to come forward, and this is the children that came forward praying at the end of the service.
Mi corazón, quiero que tú seas mi Salvador. Gracias que Jesús murió en la cruz por mí y resucitó de la tumba y yo quiero ir al cielo. Gracias por amarme y gracias por perdonarme. Yo te amo. En el nombre de Cristo Jesús. Amén. Amén.
And we saw that scene played over and over several times, and that was always very touching. This was the church in Nicaragua, and here again they're going to outdo us because this was a new song, I think, to several of the churches that Pam taught to the children, but they really enjoyed it, so here we go. And this next song is our young people at Las Uvas. And I was very proud of the job they did. They did an excellent job singing, and it sounded really good. And I think they already sang this, but here we are in Las Uvas. This is Eric and Hannah's second church. This was a week ago today, Sunday afternoon. Okay, this is the house where we stayed. They rented the house just for us for the week, and you can see the gates partly open there that Ethan talked about. Really, the reason I was so nervous was that I knew it was locked until he went out there. When I heard that loud click, I was like, wasn't sure if it's still locked, but apparently it was because we survived the night. But it was interesting to me how we met different people. There's just so many needy people there. And one of the ways we met some people was in the picture here in front of the van, there's a trash can. It's sort of on a pedestal there. They have them up because there's so many stray dogs. And Sunday, let's see which picture I have. Last Sunday morning, we were leaving the house to go down to Eric and Hannah's. It's like a block away. And there was this boy digging in the trash. He was getting some of our leftover pizza we'd thrown away. And I don't know if he was going to eat it, but if he was, we weren't sure if he should. It had been sitting out a while, and it really wasn't. But anyway, that's what he was doing. And so I think it was Kristen that went over and talked to him because she was the only one in our group to speak Spanish. And she invited him to church, and he was concerned about his clothes. He was embarrassed. He didn't feel like he was dressed up enough, but they convinced him to come anyway. And so it was his first time to meet Eric, first time at the church, and he stayed and had Sunday dinner with us. And I heard from Eric today that he came back today and brought a sister. And so just through meeting someone digging through our trash in front of our apartment, here's someone new coming to their church. And then this young man we met the morning we were leaving. He was also digging through the trash. As weird as it sounds, a lot of people do this. They go looking for anything that can be recycled or food or whatever. He told us about a year ago, Eric talked to him and then explained it to us later, but about a year ago, one of his parents passed away. And then the week before we were there, his other remaining parent, I can't remember which father or mother, that passed away right before we were there. And so he was just trying to find things to live on. We gave him a blessing bag. And unfortunately, I don't have time to show you all the places we went, but I do appreciate everyone's support and prayers. We had a wonderful trip, and I'm really grateful I was able to go. We have a message from Eric that we want to play as well.
One thing is for sure, there's no church like the Beavertown God's Missionary Church. You've literally impacted people around the world, and you've made a huge impact in my own personal life. As a young person growing up at Beavertown, I was privileged to go on youth mission trips like many young people are going today. And those trips did something for me that has stuck with me the rest of my life. I got to see poverty. I got to see people who had desperate needs and who didn't live the way I lived. And it created in my heart a passion to do something to win those souls to Christ. And it helped confirm that missionary call that I had as a young person. Thank you as a church for standing behind us. Thank you for investing in future missionaries. And thank you for sending out young people who continue to make a difference in our world. And thank you for how you've supported projects that we've had just recently. you've raised over $5,000 for a water project in Las Delicias. And those things have just raised the entire level of life in Las Delicias. Our young pastor and his family said to me last fall, I feel like God wants us to go pastor in Las Delicias. We were thrilled. We needed a pastor there. But we needed to build a parsonage, and life there is totally different than life here in the city. And his wife Jenny was willing to make the sacrifice to go out there and live the way they live to reach those people for Christ. And they made the move, and over several months she went through culture shock, trying to adjust to the culture. One of the things that she had to adjust to was washing her clothes. She didn't have running water in her house, and she had to walk across the field carrying her clothes and wash her clothes on a rock next to a pond. And those kind of things were difficult for her. But thanks to you guys, you raised enough money to buy a pump to pump water out of a well, fill a water tank that now has running water in their home, and not just their home, but 4 other homes as well. Now she doesn't have to wash her clothes on a rock next to a pond. Thank you so much for giving. Thank you for standing behind our people here and investing in their lives. And just sending top quality young people. We felt privileged to have them here. They were one of the best youth missions teams we've ever hosted. And thank you to the parents for allowing them to come. They were absolutely fantastic. They worked hard in every service. They packed out our church with young people and with children and told them the gospel, presented to them Jesus Christ, and not only in the sermons, but they lived Jesus before them, and that made a huge impact in our people's lives. Just this past Wednesday, we had some testimonies, and people were talking about the team that was here, and one of the men stood and testified, and he said Sunday morning service was absolutely amazing. We could feel God's presence here in a way that we haven't felt in a long time. As Brother Malloy preached on Zacchaeus and how God changed his life, he said that message spoke to my heart. And to see those young people testify and talk about how they were saved as children, giving their hearts to God at a young age, it just made a huge impact on him. Thank you, young people, for living Christ and for sharing Christ with our people. They'll never be the same because of it. And we hope that you come back soon and continue to send out young people, continue to support these efforts. They're not in vain. They are doing wonderful things, and we count it a privilege to be part of the Beavertown Church. We're proud of the church and all that you're doing. And thank you for praying for us as a missionary family. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for giving. You've sent gifts. Even when the team came, they brought a bunch of gifts from the people there. Thank you so much for that. We feel loved, we feel supported, and we want you to know from the bottom of our hearts that we love you very much. And we want to continue to work together to save souls for the kingdom of God.
great to be with this great team of young people and sponsors. To work alongside of Eric and Hannah was a real absolute blessing. It's impacted my life, impacted these young people's life, all who went, impacted hundreds of people in Honduras and Nicaragua. There's so much more that could be said, but we thank God, most of all, for all that He's did for us on the trip, for helping us each step of the way. It was quite a privilege to be able to reconnect with people who I met 4 years ago and to see how God is working in their lives. That Eric and Hannah have discipled and led them and are just having a tremendous impact on their lives. It was so great to see Pablo, a boy that we met a few years ago, studying to be a missionary. Now it was great to be with his mom and to see how she's grown and is now just a vital part of their church. And it was just incredible to be in the service on Sunday night as almost everyone testified and just thanked the group for coming and just shared how just the short time we'd had with them had greatly impacted their life. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the young people that testified in that service. And I don't know if that's common for them or not, but they expressed how much the team's example had just been just a blessing to their life. Many of them, of course, are perhaps some of the only Christians that attend their schools, and they don't have friends that are really Christians. And so to meet other young people who are serving God was a real blessing for them. One of the highlights for me was being able to reconnect with a boy that I met 4 years ago that was from the Las Uvas church. His family lived right next door to it. And 4 years ago, when we were there, he was the only teenage boy in the church, and I did my best to try to talk to him and communicate with him. It was really ridiculous at times what I tried to do to just entertain him and make him feel like I liked him. One of the times we were there for a service 4 years ago and he wasn't there, and I asked his sister where he was, and she said he was sleeping in his house. And so I went into his house and he was sleeping in a chair with a blanket pulled up over his head, and I grabbed the blanket and I pulled it down and I scared him half to death. And he probably had never woken up to a white man in his face before. He was no doubt traumatized for the rest of his life, but whatever the case, I felt like he was just a special boy, and I wanted to buy him a Bible. His family only had one Bible that they all shared, and he didn't have his personal Bible, and so I had Eric go to a Christian bookstore and help me pick out a good Bible for him, and I wrote just basically a challenge to him to read the Bible every day. And I presented the Bible to him, and it was the greatest gift he'd ever received. And I put my number in the front cover, and when I landed in Harrisburg four years ago, my phone rang as soon as I turned it on, and here he was calling me just to say thank you again for the Bible. And throughout the last few years, we've kept in contact briefly through Facebook, and I learned through Facebook and our conversations that he had given his heart to God. And I was real excited about being able to see him again, and we were over there, and it just didn't look like it was going to be possible. He called a few times, and I was able to talk to him with Eric's help. But right before we left, he came by taxi to the airport and to meet me, and it was just incredible to see how God's worked in his life. He's now preaching the gospel with the Bible that I gave him, and he's preached in over 8 different churches. And he says, about wore the Bible you gave me, about wore it out. And so I promised him if he'd keep preaching, I'd keep supplying the Bibles. And I left Eric with a decent amount of money for him to buy him a really nice leather-bound Bible. And it's just, it's amazing. These missions trips, the impacts that they have on our young people, the lasting impact that they have on the mission work there. And Your giving is not in vain. And we thank you so much for praying for the trip, for supporting in every way. I would say a big thank you to our sponsors, Hermano Juan, John Plank. That's what we call him in Honduras. He's Hermano Juan. Anyways, he was a great person to have on the trip and helped in different ways. Alicia and Pam were great, taking care of the girls and panicking alongside of them and all that good stuff, and helping organize the children's services. It was a great team, and we had a lot of good times. And the most precious thing to me, perhaps on the trip, was in Las Delicias when we had done the children's service. At the conclusion, everybody was leaving, and there was a group of kids that went up to Eric and the pastor there and said, "We want to ask Jesus into our heart." And we had given no appeal at all for children to even ask Jesus into their heart, but they were touched, and God's presence was there. And we had prayer with those children, and it was a really, really precious time. There's so much more that we could share, but we just thank you for your giving. And at the conclusion of the service here, we are going to take up an offering, and this is all going to go towards the youth missions trips next year. This year, it was very expensive for our children to go, our young people to go and be part of these trips, and a lot of them had to work very, very hard to go, doing fundraisers and different things. And our hope is by taking an offering tonight, we can help defray some of that cost for next year, so that our young people won't have to raise quite as much money. So everything that you give tonight in an offering will go directly to youth missions trips next year. And you don't have to worry about it going for some other project. It's definitely going there. And in hopes that all of our young people here who have a desire to go on our youth missions trips, that they can go, and that the price and the cost of the trip won't be an issue, so that they can be impacted just like these young people have been impacted this year, and that more souls will be impacted. Eric and Hannah, they're half crazy, I think, but they've invited us to come back in 2 years and bring another youth missions team down and hold a first ever youth camp in the country of Honduras with the churches that they have down there. And they were pretty excited about how the young people had testified to how the group had impacted them just in the short time we were with them. I think some of the guys might have had a greater impact on the girls in his youth group than maybe some of the others. Zeb, Ruben, and Clayton, you guys especially. But anyways, we do have an invite to go back in 2 years, and so as the Lord tarries, we will do our best to get back there and minister more for Him.